2 hours ago, Trump made a move that every intelligence official in America begged him not to make. The White House issued a classified executive memorandum, immediately leaked by 3 separate Pentagon sources, formally suspending Canada's access to the Five Eyes intelligence sharing network. Not a review, a full suspension. Satellite feeds cut. Signals intelligence revoked. Joint cyber operations frozen. Decades of integrated defense infrastructure severed with the stroke of a pen. Justification was that Canada's independent diplomatic engagements constitute a national security risk. But the real reason is simpler. Carney refused to cancel the European Union security partnership he announced last week. Trump gave him a 48-hour ultimatum. Carney let the clock run out without responding. The memorandum is structured around 3 critical components, each with immediate and devastating consequences. First, all Canadian military and intelligence personnel embedded in American facilities must vacate within 72 hours. Over 1,400 Canadian officers currently work inside American operations, including at NORAD, the joint command responsible for defending North American airspace. Second, all shared Arctic surveillance infrastructure is reclassified as American-only assets, effectively ending decades of binational monitoring in the most strategically critical region on the continent. Canada co-funded these advanced systems for 30 years. Now, maintaining them alone will cost Canada an estimated $11.4 billion annually. The Arctic surveillance architecture is an integrated early warning system detecting missiles, tracking military aircraft, and monitoring submarine activity across millions of square kilometers. The infrastructure assumed permanent cooperation. Canadian radar installations cover blind spots American systems cannot reach from Alaska. Canadian personnel operate monitoring stations. American forces lack manpower to staff. The entire network was engineered around binational operation. That assumption just collapsed. Third, all joint cyber defense operations between the NSA and Canada's Communications Security Establishment are terminated immediately. These collaborative programs have protected American banking systems, power grids, and military networks from foreign intrusion for decades. Severing them does not just hurt Canada. It creates vulnerabilities in American infrastructure that adversaries will exploit within days. The Cyber Defense Partnership was built on specialization. Canadian analysts focus on threat actors and attack vectors. American teams lack capacity to monitor full-time. Canadian code-breaking capabilities supplement NSA cryptanalysis where resources are stretched. Canadian early warning systems detect intrusion attempts. American sensors miss. Terminating this means specific threat vectors go completely unmonitored. Within 72 hours, there will be successful intrusions that would have been prevented if the partnership were operational. The White House expected panic. They expected Carney to call Washington within hours, asking for terms. They expected Canadian business leaders to flood Ottawa demanding the government capitulate. They expected surrender within 24 hours. But this is where the calculation went catastrophically wrong. 30 minutes after the memorandum leaked, Carney was standing at the National Defense Headquarters in Ottawa. Not Parliament, the military headquarters. He was flanked by the Chief of the Defense Staff and the British High Commissioner to Canada. He opened with 6 words that immediately went viral. "We anticipated this. We are ready." Then he announced 4 countermeasures that have Washington in absolute crisis tonight. First, Canada is activating a bilateral intelligence sharing agreement with the United Kingdom that had been secretly finalized 3 months ago in anticipation of exactly this scenario. This agreement gives Canada immediate access to British signals intelligence, satellite surveillance, and advanced cyber defense capabilities. Everything the American suspension removed, the British partnership replaces overnight. British and Canadian officials had quietly built parallel infrastructure for over a year. The satellite feeds were already configured. The personnel were already trained. The protocols were already tested. When Trump pulled the plug, Canada flipped a switch and continued operating without interruption. Second, Canada is voluntarily withdrawing all its personnel from NORAD and redeploying them to a new joint Arctic Defense Command formed in partnership with the United Kingdom, Denmark, and Norway. Carney stated, "If the United States no longer wants to defend North America with us, we will defend our half with allies who understand what alliance truly means." NORAD has never functioned without Canadian participation. American officials have already admitted NORAD cannot reach full operational capacity without Canadian radar systems and Arctic infrastructure. The command structure was designed around binational integration. Canadian personnel staff critical positions at Cheyenne Mountain and Peterson Space Force Base. Canadian radar provides coverage. American systems cannot replicate from U.S. territory. Canadian fighters intercept aircraft in airspace. American jets cannot reach quickly enough. Without Canada, the mission becomes exponentially harder, and some portions become impossible. Third, all American military aircraft using Canadian airspace for Arctic patrols are denied overflight rights effective in 7 days. Without those routes, the Air Force must reroute through Alaska, tripling fuel costs and cutting patrol coverage by 60%. Russian and Chinese military activity in the Arctic has increased 300% in the past 3 years. American surveillance of that activity just got dramatically harder. Fourth, Canada is launching the Democratic Security Compact, a new multilateral intelligence framework independent of American participation. 6 nations have agreed in principle. 4 more are in active discussions. This is not a regional alliance. This is a global intelligence network designed to operate without Washington. The initial 6 members represent a strategic cross-section of democratic powers. The United Kingdom brings signals intelligence and global reach. France contributes human intelligence networks and African coverage. Germany offers cyber capabilities and Eastern European monitoring. Japan provides Pacific surveillance and regional threat analysis. Australia supplies Indo-Pacific intelligence and special operations expertise. Norway contributes Arctic knowledge and Russian border monitoring. These are not peripheral players. These are Tier 1 intelligence powers with capabilities that rival or exceed American capacity in specific domains. Together, they form an intelligence architecture that can function entirely independent of U.S. participation. And the message to Washington is unmistakable. If America chooses isolation, the rest of the democratic world will build systems that work without it. The Pentagon reaction was immediate and brutal. 3 retired 4-star generals appeared on television within hours, saying, "This is the most dangerous national security decision in the post-Cold War era." A former NORAD commander said directly, "Without Canadian forces, there are gaps in our defense that adversaries will exploit. This decision endangers every American citizen." NSA officials, speaking anonymously because they are not authorized to criticize White House policy publicly, said Canadian cyber capabilities fill critical gaps in American protection. One stated, "There are threat vectors where Canadian capabilities exceed our own. Losing their systems blinds us." These are not Canadian voices defending Canada. These are American defense and intelligence professionals warning their own government that the decision is strategically catastrophic. The international response buried the White House. The British Prime Minister formally stated the United Kingdom stands with Canada. NATO's Secretary General called an emergency consultation. France and Germany endorsed Canada's position. Australia and New Zealand, the other Five Eyes members, reaffirmed their relationships with Canada as unchanged. The Five Eyes is not breaking apart the way Trump planned. 4 of the Five Eyes looked at each other and agreed the problem is the 5th. Washington is the one being isolated, not Ottawa. Trump now faces a situation with no good options. He can enforce the suspension, and NORAD operates at reduced capacity, while Russian Arctic activity escalates and a new intelligence alliance forms without America. He can walk it back, But that means Trump has publicly backed down against Carney twice in 2 weeks. Or he can escalate further, but every option pushes more allies toward Canada while isolating the United States. But the detail most analysts are missing is the one that actually matters most. Carney's countermeasures were not improvised. Every move was calculated. Every contingency was mapped in advance. The British agreement was finalized 3 months ago. The Arctic command structure was already designed. The logistics were already in place. The Democratic Security Compact had already been negotiated in secret meetings. Canada was not caught off guard. Canada was waiting. A senior White House advisor said off the record, "We thought we held all the cards. It turns out Carney had a second deck we didn't even know existed." This reveals something fundamental about how Carney operates. He does not react to pressure. He prepares for it. He does not scramble when threatened. He activates plans that were ready before the threat was even issued. Washington keeps assuming Canada will panic. Canada keeps proving it was 3 moves ahead all along. 2 hours ago, the White House believed it was delivering the ultimate punishment. 2 hours later, Canada has a new intelligence partnership with Britain, a new Arctic Defense Command with 4 NATO allies, a new security compact with 6 democratic nations, and the full support of nearly every major American ally on Earth. Trump wanted to isolate Canada. He isolated America. He wanted to prove no country defies the United States without consequences. He proved the consequences fall hardest on the country making the threats. He wanted Carney to beg. Carney did not even blink. And here is what should terrify Washington. If Carney prepared this thoroughly for a Five Eyes suspension, what else has he prepared for? What other contingencies are sitting in drawers in Ottawa, ready to activate the moment Trump makes his next move? Mark Carney is not playing defense anymore. He is building a world where American bullying carries a cost, and that cost is relevance. Washington is learning, painfully, that power is not just about size. It is about strategy. And right now, Ottawa is out-strategizing the most powerful nation on Earth.